I just got back from New York. Not I didn't just get back. I've been back for like a week or so, but um, I tried. So going to New York, I tried to go to bookstores because I thought, well, I'll find interesting books that we can talk about on the podcast.
Right.
And I did go to a few bookstores. There was this bookstore in Brooklyn called Powerhouse Books. I went to a couple of other. There was one. There was a bookstore near Wall Street that I went to. I can't remember the name of it right now. But mostly they sold books that were like way too highbrow for me.
Right.
Like I couldn't find things like the Stormlight Archive or anything like that. Like it was a bunch of like either philosophy or books, historical books about New York. You know, it wasn't
Right.
it wasn't a lot of books like we normally talk about. Some Stephen
More of
King.
your...
They all had Stephen
Oh,
King.
really?
Yeah.
Really? That's interesting.
I think Stephen King just kind of like
He's just everywhere.
yeah, he's big enough that he just like is
Right.
accepted in all circles.
Exactly. He appeals to the masses.
Yeah.
Literally.
I did so my wife picked up some like kids books for her classroom. And I was at this this tenement museum. So let me grab the book, but I'm gonna leave it off camera for a second. So I was at there's this tenement museum, which basically is they have this old building that's like from like the late 1800s that immigrants used to live in New York City. Whenever they would come over like from Ellis Island, they would basically go to these tenement buildings as sort of like their starting place in America. And then usually they would build up, a little bit of wealth and then move out to one of the bureaus. And we did a tour of, we did like an Irish tour and a women of the tenement building. I can't remember the name of the tour, but it was really cool. It was really neat. They had this building set up like the way people lived back then, but it was also just like a super old building and like, just neat to see. And one of the interesting things that I said about like all the different, like they had like an old like iron stove and like a bunch of old like cast iron, like, cooking utensils and things like that. And it wasn't that different than the mill here in the South.
Right.
Like I grew up in the Mill Hill houses, and I remember my grandmother, she had like an old iron stove like that.
Sure.
And like I just thought that was like they're talking about like how this is like the like pinnacle of this like poverty lifestyle of the 1890s, and I'm like, my grandmother had that in the 90s.
my
yeah.
My grandparents, they're dead, but my family, they're from Mount Airy, North Carolina.
Yeah, I know Mount Airy,
which is Mayberry.
Yeah, I've been there.
So after my grandparents passed, they had their house, so now they do an Airbnb, and
that's
for people
perfect.
Want to stay in Mount Airy, but they have a wood stove in their basement.
Yeah,
that is like, I mean, that thing, kicks out some heat, man. Like
for people that don't know, like it literally is Mayberry. It's where they filmed all the Andy Griffith stuff, right?
Well, it's based on there. They filmed in Hollywood, but it's based on all the locations and stuff are there, essentially.
Yeah. I remember going there whenever I was a kid.
Yeah, I used to live there too.
That's pretty neat. Neat. It's a perfect place for
it's a pretty cool place.
An Airbnb.
Yeah, definitely. They rent it out pretty regularly, especially in the fall because it's in the mountains and you got all the leaves and and you can go on the Mayberry tour and what's his name, Don Knotts' Barney Fife. You can go, like a guy dresses up and drives you around in the car and stuff.
One bullet in his pocket.
One bullet.
Well, anyway, while I was at the tenement museum, they sold books, but all the books were about, about this time period in New York, and they were interesting. They were cool. I probably would have picked up a few of the books, but everything there was just like so expensive. Everything in New York was crazy expensive, especially right now. But they had one book that seemed out of place for this store. and it had a $2 price tag on it, and so I went ahead and picked it
Pass
up.
up.
They had the uh, the Return of the King. This was
That's odd.
yeah. There is no reason, and I'll show you the $2 price tag if it'll come into focus. But there's like no reason for this book to be in this museum. I mean, it's a museum that has nothing to do with fantasy or the Lord of the Rings or
Right.
anything like that. And I just thought it's only $2. I might as well buy it. But now I've got to find the other two that will like
Exactly.
match this
The
spine.
match that spine. Exactly.
Yeah. So really, I think I for $2 I really suckered myself into probably buying two full price books
Right.
to match it to go on my shelf. But that and
That's funny.
yeah, it's really odd that it was there.
That's like one of those people that just place random crap in like stores and various places. Somebody just, I'm
Yeah,
gonna set this down and
it
mess with
wasn't.
somebody.
I mean, it was a very organized, like nice, clean store. Like it wasn't like it was like, oh, this Joe just puts his
Right.
extra books out there. Sometimes it was just like literally mixed amongst all these other, like New York history books. Was just the Return of the King, not the Fellowship of the Ring. You know,
Right.
not the Two Towers, but the Return of the King is there. So I picked that up just because it was cheap, and I was thinking what would make my trip complete is if just coincidentally I found the other two books somewhere also. But I think I'm gonna have to order them on Amazon.
Yeah.
And then I picked up Station 11. I thought I would go ahead and
Okay.
buy that, and I Becca started reading it, so and
Okay.
I don't think I would read it for a while anyway. I think I would have trouble reading it and comparing it to the show the whole
To the
time I'm reading
show.
it.
Right.
Yeah. So that brings up an interesting question. Does watching a TV show based on a book spoil the book for you?
No, and it's usually because I've come to understand that adaptations, either TV or movie, typically don't have a lot to do with the actual source material. And there's very few, I mean, like sometimes you can, they get the general
Yeah.
idea of the book and it may it gets to the end, but it gets there a different way type thing. So you still kind of get spoiled for the end.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I mean, I usually enjoy both. Now, I have harder the other way. Like especially if I really like a book,
Yeah.
and I have a harder time with the adaptation for TV or movie, um, typically, because like I said, usually if I'm going the opposite way, it's a pleasant surprise with the book. You're like, oh, okay, that was really good. And
Yeah.
then when you get a book and you see the adaptation, you're like, oh man, that's just a load of crap, like.
Yeah.
So um,
I think that
there's been a few exceptions, but
yeah. I
typically that's how it is.
I think that probably the answer is it depends, but I'll tell you my gut reaction is my gut reaction is I would rather I would rather do it the opposite direction than you. I would rather read the book and then watch the show, because then I find it more appealing to compare the show to the book, because then you're seeing, well,
Right.
I know what's going to happen or I know what happened in the book, but I'm getting to watch how they adapted it for screen, versus the opposite feels cheaper. So like if I'm reading a book that's based on a show that I just watched, then the whole time I'm reading the book I'm thinking, oh, this is different than the show, you know?
Sure.
But I say that, and then I thought about 11/22/63 and how that show was nothing at all like the book.
No. Right.
I mean, it was like the book, but it was
Right.
not.
That
But the key
they got the
thread,
ending again. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But the key thread to the book was the constantly having to go back and repeat, and they didn't do that at
Right.
all in the show.
They didn't do that at all,
They
and they
never
left
did it.
out the whole janitor part too.
Oh, was that on? That wasn't in the show. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So, and then the yellow card man was more of a character in the show than in the book. like a
I
little bit more prominent.
I
But
really don't even remember. I don't even remember that show, to be honest with you. I remember the book. I don't remember the show though.
right, I don't remember the show as much either. But
I
yeah,
mean,
now
it had the main character was that actor that got like kind of pseudo canceled. Um, crap, I gotta look it up.
um, James Franco.
James Franco, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it had James
yeah, I couldn't
Franco in it.
think of it.
Um, I barely remember the show at all, but yeah, I think other than that one exception, I think I would more prefer to read it. Wait a minute, to read it first
To
and then
read it
watch the
first,
show. Yeah,
right? I think either way, you've got pleasant surprises and disappointments. So I mean,
yeah.
um, it, there's a couple things like when you talk about like Station 11 or there's a couple movies that I think not only just wonderful movies
Mm-hmm.
in themselves, but wonderful adaptations. And Stephen King again. You've got Stand by Me and The Shawshank Redemption,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and even The Green Mile.
yeah.
Those are all like to me worthy of the novel, even though they change it. Now, the good thing with um, say like Stand by Me and The Shawshank Redemption is they were based off short stories,
Mm.
so there wasn't as much source material. So
Yeah.
the makers of the movies could like expand on
Right. Right.
stuff that wasn't there, and which made it because in the Shawshank Redemption, if you ever read that short story, like it takes place over the same a long period of time, but there's not one um warden throughout in the
Right. The way
story.
they did in the movie.
There's probably 20 wardens, and he's not really a this main focal bad guy character. He's just a warden, he's just whoever it was, but
Yeah. Yeah.
um again, they took that and made it, that movie that might be,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's this top 5 movie
Yeah,
definitely
for
for
sure.
me. That's
Yeah.
such a good movie.
We were just talking
um
about it at work the other day, just randomly. I think we were talking about that actor that passed
um
away, the giant, like the
the
humongous guy.
Michael Clark
Yeah,
Duncan.
Michael Clark Duncan. Yeah, we were just talking about him at work the other day. And
Yeah,
how
right.
he's in other movies, but like that's really the role that like was like his like the really only thing he's really famous for. He's in Armageddon. He's in a few other movies, but
Right.
he's really
Well,
famous for
that's
that one.
in now he's in The Green Mile.
Oh, what were we? Oh, you're talking about Shawshank Redemption. I'm sorry, I got mixed up.
Yeah, but either way, I mean that's another
Yeah,
so good. And they trimmed that up, you
yeah.
from the story, and expanded on it and stuff. So I mean that was done well.
I think the
Um,
Lord of the Rings movies are as good as the books. I don't know how
I do
popular
too.
or how like I have no idea what that is like in popular culture, if people share that opinion or if they think there's like a big disservice. I mean, there's characters that are there's a like only a few like characters that are not in the movies. And there's a
Right,
few moments in the books that are not in the movies, but then they ended up going and using some of those moments in the Hobbit trilogy. I guess that's an
which
unpopular opinion. I don't hate the Hobbit trilogy the way people do.
I don't
So
like it.
so I think that it feels Disney-fied during certain parts, like the part where the orcs are chasing them and they're on the river and all this stuff, and Legolas is there, and like that's where
Right,
it gets kind of Disney-fied.
right,
But what I like about the Hobbit movies is that they did take some scenes, like that were in like the Fellowship that didn't make it in the Fellowship movie, but
right,
they needed some way to flesh out one book into 3 movies, and so they put some of those moments
right.
in the Hobbit. But um, yeah, I still have not watched a third movie of the Hobbit trilogy, so I have never watched it. I've
That
been
one's is that the Five Armies one?
I think it's Desolation of Smog. I don't remember the names of all 3 of them. I'd have to
But
IMDb it.
um, the third, the one that's called the Five Armies, that one is the worst one for me. I don't know. Um,
I have to
I
look it
bet
up.
again, I'm interested in the show. What is it?
The,
Oh, what's it called? The Amazon
yeah,
Lord of
I'm
the Rings
interested in
show.
that too. The one that's based on the simulacrum or whatever it is.
Similarian,
Similarian.
Similarian.
You're right. The Battle of the Five Armies is the third one. The Desolation
Yeah,
of Smog is the second one. But the Battle of the Five Armies is the one I have not seen. I haven't seen it.
yeah. Don't worry about it.
Um, yeah, the new Lord of the Rings show. What is it called? It's called the something of the Ring. It's called The Rings of Power. Lord of the Rings, The
Rings
Rings
of
of
Power.
Power.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't. I can't wait to watch it.
yeah. I know, right?
But I don't. I don't think it's going to be amazing. I would love to be blown
No,
away, but I'm just setting myself up with low
right.
expectations so that when I watch it and I'm blown away,
Exactly.
I can't wait.
Got to
um,
set that bar really low.
I mean, I don't think it'll be. I don't think it'll be horrible. I think it's gonna get. I think that it's one of those things that just will never live up to the hype. Like I just don't think that, no matter how
Right.
good it was, I think that it would probably get kind of a negative first reaction.
You
But
know,
I don't think it's going to be great either, though.
Amazon, they got the money, so like that's
Yeah.
good. Um, and I hope it does well because Amazon was adapting the Dark Tower
Oh, really? I didn't know
series,
that.
and they filmed at least the pilot,
Hmm.
um, and then they scrapped it,
Hmm.
and that was about a year ago, maybe. And like, I would love for the Lord of the Rings to blow up, and they were like, maybe we should go back and revisit.
Yeah.
Um, but it had I can't remember who was playing Roland, um, but it had you watch Game of Thrones, didn't you?
I did. Yeah.
The guy that plays
I watched the
what was
first
his,
three seasons of Game of Thrones.
Braun.
I have to look
He's
at.
um the mercenary that helps Tyrion, the funny guy.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, he was Stephen Deshane, so he played Roland's dad, and I forgot who it was. They filmed at least one episode, maybe more. So that's one that I would love to see someone tackle.
I could see them even if the Lord of the Rings show is not wildly successful. Amazon has been spending money on I could see them still spending the money to do it possibly. And a lot of it has to do with all of these streaming services are trying to create shows so that
Right.
people will use their service over other ones. I could see them trying to do it just for that reason. Um, yeah, that'd be cool. That's another example of I watched the Dark Tower movie and
Oh
then
God.
read the book. And okay, this is gonna sound sacrilegious to you probably because you're such a Dark Tower fan. But and also they rarely describe his features in the book, but he is on the cover of a few books. But I still think of Idris Elba as the gunslinger. Whenever I'm picturing him reading the book, I think of Idris Elba just because I saw the movie first.
Right.
Even though based on the covers of the book, he's really he's he's always some white cowboy guy on the covers of the book.
Right.
But in the actual, at least in the Gunslinger, they don't really ever describe his features. That they let you make it up.
Yeah. He is.
Maybe they do whenever he's a boy. Actually.
Well, he's definitely described that way as a boy, but he is like essentially Clint Eastwood, like from
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the good, the bad, and the ugly type
Yeah.
era. That's
But yeah, I was still picturing Idris Elba. But I was making a conscious choice just because I like Idris Elba.
right. I do too.
But
I had no problem with him. I had more problem with the show.
Yeah, but I think that it doesn't really come in conflict until they describe him as a kid. I think maybe as a kid they might mention enough details. Um, but so I'm reading the Words of Radiance. I'm trying
Yes.
to. I've been reading nothing but Words of Radiance ever since I went to New York. So in the airport, I read The Glass Hotel. And whenever I got to our hotel, I started listening to Words of Radiance. I didn't bring Words of Radiance with me. Um,
Right.
and then around that time, you told me you were finished with the book, and I was like, "Oh crap, I have to hurry!" And so I just started listening to it. When I would go to sleep, I would listen to a few chapters and then fall asleep, and then driving to work and back. And then recently, I've actually just been listening to the book just to listen to the book, doing nothing else, you know,
Right.
just listening. But I'm faster at listening than reading because reading, we've talked about this before, I'll go
Sure.
back and reread over and over again.
Sure.
So I'm trying to. I'm all about speed right now. I'm just trying to absorb the story
Just churn it out.
and get through it so that I could catch up with you. But I'm not doing great. I'm only at the end of part 3. I think I'm at like 50, like chapter 56. Let me look at my phone now and see where I'm at.
That the last two, at least for me, went by really quick.
I can tell that it's picking up. Where I'm at now, it's starting to pick up. I'm at chapter 55. And I think I've got to start this chapter over whenever I start listening to it. Um, so I guess spoiler alert, we're going to talk about the Words of Radiance a little bit here. I'm at the part where Shalon is figuring out that she can like disguise herself,
Okay, yeah.
and she went and she met with the Ghost Bloods,
Yeah.
and they told her that they were sending Tin to spy on Lord Amaram or
Okay.
Alakar. Was it Alakar or Amaram? I think she has to go to Amaram first,
Amram, yes.
and um, not to kill him, but they just want to know like what's going on.
What's is that where um they want her to go into that room or something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
she finds a bunch of maps,
Yeah.
and this coincides with her discovering some secrets um about Yasna's research, and she's starting to figure out that in order to get to this special place, that it's not necessarily a path that she needs to travel by foot, and so she
City or whatever.
yeah, and so she sneaks in. She sneaks into to his kingdom, and she pretends to be one of the servants there, and then she eventually gets into the room, and she makes a copy of all the maps and brings it back to the Ghost Bloods. Um, and um, at the same time, Kaladin is like learning to use his powers like similar to that of the Man in White, and he is thinking, yeah, like Zeth, and he is like he's considering killing uh, Lord Amaran and making it look like it was Zeth, but he kind of talks himself out of it. That's where I left off, basically, is right there. And at the same time, he's learned that Moash has been talking to these assassins that want to kill
Yeah.
Alakar.
They want to kill Alucard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're the ones that have been making these like accidents or whatever that
Right.
Alakar has been running into. But he hasn't told Dalaran yet, Dalinar yet. So
Right. Right. Okay. Yeah.
and yeah, that's kind of all the plots that I've got going right now. But
I'm trying to think. That's
hmm, I remember what I wanted to ask you now.
okay.
Um, the listeners.
Okay.
So far, oh, and they met with the main listener lady that you kind of follow in one of the prologues, and I guess she's the shard bearer that that Dalinar was seeing during some of the battles on the plateaus. Um,
Yes.
Ash, I can't think of her name right
Uh,
now. Ash, Ashrai,
Eshonai.
Eshonai. So Eshonai meets with Adolin, and Adolin is wearing an unfinished armor, so he looks like he's his father.
Right. He's wearing his father's armor. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's wearing his brother's armor actually.
Well, it's his brother's armor
Oh,
is
that's right.
his
He gave it
father's
to him.
armor.
Yeah. So I'm
He
reading a
gave
book.
it
I'm
to him.
trying to catch up with you. I'm reading it too fast. But yeah, you're right. I remember that now. I remember that. So they meet together, and he's trying to pitch a peace treaty to her. He's like trying to pitch the idea that they end the war and start working together, but they like refuse to do it. But he
Right.
learns that the reason why they went to war in the first place, the reason why he killed, they decided to send the assassin in the first place was because um, there's bringing about reviving the old gods,
Right.
and the listeners are like against this. They see them as betrayers.
So there's the thing that, and it's not really a spoiler or anything because they still haven't talked exactly what it was, but the whole reason why they say they assassinated him was because he had this idea
Yeah.
to do something, and
Mm-hmm.
they still haven't really said 100% what it is. They and I'm assuming that he was either going to do what Dalinar is doing right now, which was
Yeah.
trying to reassemble the Knight's Radiance,
Yeah.
or something along those lines. And the um, the listeners or whatever,
Parshindi.
they the Parshindi,
Yeah.
um, from the way it sounds, is they they don't want their old gods back,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
and but now at the same time they do, because this new form that they're doing, the storm form thing, is the old god stuff.
Yeah. It's like they're
Um,
they are. So that's what I want to talk to you
they're
about was the
fighting
whole.
they're fighting fire with fire essentially.
Exactly.
They
Yeah.
they don't want their old gods, but the best way to defeat the their enemy, the Alethians or
Yeah. Lethe.
whatever, is by the old god powers.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's what I
uh,
was gonna talk to you about. Is I don't that first prologue, or it's the interlude where they talk about the different forms and how they're changing forms,
right,
and there's like a love form, and there's like a war form, and like
right,
there's all these different forms, and like
dull form.
a dull form. Yeah, like this whole thing is like soup. Like I don't understand. I have a hard time grasping this concept.
So what I gather is you've got like the Parshindi are like, I don't know, in rough terms, like clay,
Mm-hmm.
and then you chant or whatever it is you do to become whatever form you need. So like if the people that they want to be um, warriors, they chant the thing and they become, and that's where they grow the plates and all that stuff
Right.
to fight. And then, but if they want to have children, they have to change to war form, to the mate form or whatever, the love form thing.
Yeah, I can't remember
And
what they
then,
called it.
um, so it just depends on what you're trying to do as far as your life. And then the one thing I don't understand is the dull form. I don't understand the purpose of it.
I don't
Which
either.
the
But
Parshindi, like the Parshmen, are all dull form,
yeah, right.
and that's the worry is the what's going to happen if those Parshmen change forms.
Yeah,
Uh, and because there's Parshmen everywhere,
yeah.
and that's are they the Void Bringers?
Mm-hmm.
That's if you essentially have the the carriers of the Voidvingers in your own camp.
Well, there's one
Uh,
part where the storm form is what it was.
Storm
Um,
form is the new thing that they're the old god.
I think
Uh,
that is the void. I think that is what the void bringers is. Is like in
that
storm
is
form, she can guide the currents of the
they,
storm.
they and they can create storms and guide storms and stuff like that. And that's
Yeah.
I guess that's have they talked about what their plan is to they want to
Hmm.
bring a giant storm and wipe out the Alethi essentially kind of
They
thing.
they've kind of talked about that, yeah, but not in detail yet. But
Right.
in that chapter where she goes and becomes storm form, she talks about it there. She has like a monologue about that.
Which is, that's an interesting thing too, is because the Eshonai out of all the listeners, the leader people, she was the one that seemed more, I guess, against
Yeah.
war, and she was the one that wanted to meet Dalinar,
Yeah.
and she wanted peace, and then she changed forms, and it changed
Well,
her, and it was
hers
like she
hers
still she buries it. I don't know, she still wants in her. She still thinks there's peace, but this form is controlling her so much that she wants,
huh.
vengeance
Well,
essentially.
her sister kind of tricked her. Like in that
There's some
chapter,
tricks, yes,
yeah, in that chapter, she didn't think she was getting that form until she went there. But like, but yeah, the whole form thing is just so. All right, well, I'll
it's
say this: I had the prediction that was going to turn out like Ender's Game, and that they were all just one mass, one massive mind, and I was way
right.
off base on that. It's definitely not that, and I'm glad
They
it's not.
still
I'm happy it's
are.
not.
I mean, I still think they are a tad bit.
They
I
still
don't think
have
it's
a. I think they still have like a connection, like some kind
yeah.
of sonic connection. But
I don't think it's like a Borg or
yeah, right, yeah,
anything like that. They still have like their own unique personalities, but they can communicate with each other
right,
essentially.
exactly, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Which is good because I was really worried that it was going to be almost a copy of that, and it's
right.
it's it's very much not. Yeah, it's very much not.
Okay, so the other thing, which we were texting about the other
Yeah,
day,
yeah.
which I wanted to bring up. So, so what's his name? The other,
Kaladin.
no, the guy he hates,
Um, Amaram.
Amaran. Yes.
Yeah.
So, you were talking about how, um,
Bright Lord Amaram.
right, Lord, how Shallan sees his shard blade,
Yeah,
realizes it's her
it's her
brother's
brother's
shard blade.
Helenar or something like that. I can't remember her brother's
Yeah.
name.
Um,
Helaran.
and what that means.
Well, let me tell
So,
you my fan fiction.
okay,
Yeah, let me
okay,
tell
go
you my
ahead.
fan fiction first. I've been thinking. All right, so this brings up a really good conversation about why these books are so good and why Brandon Sanderson is so good at world building. Because if you just think about the shard blade itself and like just that object, and you're introduced to it in the prologue right at the beginning of the story, and there's so much world building just in this object, just in this one thing. You learn so much about this world, and I mean, it's like the lightsaber is to Star Wars, basically.
Right. Oh, definitely.
So you know that um, only certain people have them. They are bound to that person. They do the whole 10 heartbeats thing. That's neat. It can't cut flesh, but it kills flesh, and
Right.
it can cut stone.
You can cut anything else
Yeah,
essentially
it can cut anything else
with ease.
with ease. Yeah, and it basically like sucks the soul from you if it kills you. It, like
Right.
drains everything. Your eyes from your sockets
Eyes
and all that stuff.
burn out and all that stuff.
And so there is so much world building just in that because you know that okay, in order to get one, you had to have killed somebody that had one. So if you see somebody with one, you know that they've killed someone, and you know that not only have they
In
killed someone,
theory, yes.
yeah, they killed someone important. Okay, so maybe I don't know, because what I was thinking about with Shallan is she has a shard blade, and it's mentioned. We talked about this before, but it's mentioned in the first book that she has a shard blade, but it's like just one sentence, and it never comes up again. And um, I was just thinking, how did she get one? And then I thought, well, her father probably had one, and so she must be the person that kills her father. That was one of the first things that went through my mind. And then I thought, whenever they introduced the idea that her brother had one, because her brother threatens her father with it,
Right.
I think that's in Words of Radiance,
Yes.
and um, and then I was thinking, well, does she kill her brother? I don't think she's going to kill her brother. She seems to like her brother. She's definitely going to kill her father. And I've been getting her backstory too. I'm getting. I haven't got to that part yet, but I'm getting close.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's
Coming
coming.
to a head.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you'll learn all that. You'll learn everything.
Um, and then I thought, well, what if? Here's my fan fiction, right? What if she kills her father, and then she's granted a shard? She's granted her brother's shard blade, and then that would reveal that her father had killed her brother and kept it secret. That was my like. That was like my theory. That was my idea that I thought this could be building to. But I know that must not be the case because I just got to the part where she found out that Amaran
Has the
has her
blade.
brother's shard blade, which means that Kaladin killed her brother.
Her brother.
Yeah,
But she thinks that
but
Amran killed her brother.
right, but then I had another idea. I've been thinking this for a while now because at some point towards the beginning of the book, they mentioned that Amaran loans his blade out to people. That like his soldiers will use his blade, and they make a
Yes.
point of saying that like,
Well, they make it a point a lot of times that that happens.
yeah, yeah. And so then I had the idea. Here's another fan fiction moment that I would have, and I think this could be coming. Don't spoil it if it is. Um, but I think Amaran's using Kaladin's shard blade. Like I think that there could be a moment where Kaladin needs a shard blade, and sure enough, he can summon that shard blade because it really was Kaladin's. He's
It really was.
right, but
But he never bonded it.
yeah, he never bonded to it. As a matter of fact, I don't think he ever even touched it.
Yeah, he never touched it
But
because he
that
refused it. But okay, so yeah, you'll learn
there's something there with that.
there. But I will say this: the what we talked about as far as Amran has the shard blade, so and then Kaladin killed the person who had the shard blade. Now
Yeah.
that does not necessarily mean that
Mm.
that was her brother that Kaladin killed,
Oh,
and they
true.
never
True. They didn't really
in the
confirm that.
book. Again, this
Yeah.
doesn't really spoil anything. They never confirm, at least up until this point,
Uh
who that was killed.
yeah.
So, I mean, it could be that some other guy killed her brother, and then
Yeah.
Kaladin killed that guy, and because you know, have you gotten into have they started the dueling thing more? Where
Yeah, Cal Adolin is
Adolin
dueling
starts
everybody and
dueling.
their cousin. Yeah.
So that's like apparently, that's the big thing is, everyone duels for shard blades
Yeah.
and shard plates, and so they change hand pretty regularly.
Yeah.
Um, so again, that doesn't necessarily mean that was her brother that Kaladin killed,
No, that's true.
but
That's true.
that's what they're definitely implying.
Yeah,
You
they
know,
because they even say that that was a I forget what kind of race she is, but it was
right?
Vorin, I think is her race. It was her.
Lauren, I
It
think
was the
that's
same
right.
race, and he had red hair, which they talk about how that is kind of rare.
Right.
Maybe in all of Alcar it's rare, but it's definitely rare with Vorin because it's a symbol. It's a sign that you have Horn Eater somewhere in your
Yes.
lineage. Um, but yeah, I just thought like thinking about uh the Shard Blade and the Span Reed, um, kind of the way Brandon Sanderson is doing the world building is more in the sort of the tools and devices that the people use. But you just the shard blade is just like a you learn so much just from there's so much storytelling that you can do with that one item
So like
because of the rules of it and stuff.
cannot wait until you find out, because you're gonna find out what shard blades are, and it's gonna blow your
Oh
mind.
wow, okay. Oh man,
Yeah,
it's even more world building than I
yeah,
realized.
oh
Oh my
definitely, oh
gosh.
definitely. Like it's you, yeah, it's been setting up this whole time. You're gonna be like, whoa, like it's so good when you find out.
Oh man.
Yeah, yeah, it's good.
I kind of got
Um,
I don't want to say I got a spoiler because I still don't understand it, but I only don't understand it because I basically quit reading. I was like reading something and I said I should stop reading this and I put it down. But there's a moment where there's a character that goes and talks to um that is speaking with Shalon whenever she's a little girl. And she runs off from her father at some festival,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and this guy he says like axe hound. That's a peculiar word. It's an axe and a hound. We know it, but what is a hound? And I was just like, man, that's some like Stephen King stuff right there. Like what could that mean? So I started googling it, and there's a few other times in the book where they mention like they say that their clothes is soiled, but how do they even know what soil is? They live on this plain that's like made out of all crim and like doesn't actually have like soil, but yet they still use the word in that way, in a way that implies that it was like dirty from soil. And then I started reading that it has to do with some ancient people, like it's a word that like um, would have been continued on from previous people that lived in this area. And then I started, and I was like, oh crap, I'm probably getting a spoiler if I keep reading. And so I quit reading. So I don't know what any of that means, but I thought it was peculiar that they pointed that hound thing out. Um, but then I thought there's the whole Cosmere thing. What if that was just? What if that's some? I've never read any other Sanderson books, so like, what if that's like a crossover from another one of his books or something?
right.
I don't know. Do you know anything
Yeah.
about that and where you are,
Um.
or do we still have another book before we figure that out?
Well, I have my thoughts. I don't think you know for sure, but I felt like that person was Wit.
I did too. Yeah, I did too.
Um.
He didn't quite he didn't quite speak
He
like
didn't
Wit,
quite right, but it
but
was
I thought the
like
same thing. Yeah.
um.
That's interesting that we thought the same thing. Because if he oh, I wish I knew. I wish I knew if that was Wit because or if it's just somebody completely different and it's just it feels the same
Right.
because he
Well,
approached
you
her.
don't know. You don't know yet. So,
Yeah.
or if you do, I don't remember them saying. But yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
The the reason why I think that's interesting, we both had that thought, and so if it is him, how did Sanderson plant that seed? You know what I mean?
Right.
But it is similar to how Wit approached Kaladin at the end of the previous book, so that could be why we feel that
Right.
way.
Well,
Um,
the when you get to the end, you're gonna it's just gonna be like all
God,
of the little things from the beginning just all like come together, and you're just like
oh, I can't wait till I get to it. I wish this were a show, man. I wish it were a
Dude, I
show.
was thinking about that the other day. Cooper asked me, he said, what books do you think would make the best shows?" And I said, "Well, I always say the Dark Tower." And I was like, the what I'm reading right now
Yeah,
would be just awesome. Just
yeah.
the shard plate and the 6 foot
Oh,
like blazing swords and like
we were talking
I
about
mean like
we were talking about this at D&D. It wasn't on a podcast, but we were talking about what does it look like. They have some really good drawings in Words of Radiance
yeah,
that depict it. Compared to the draw, there was no real drawings of it in.
no,
Oh, but it makes sense because Shalon hadn't got to the Shattered Plains yet, so all the drawings in the book are from Shalon, and since she hadn't gotten there, she couldn't have drawn them until this book.
right.
It's so wild the way all that stuff fits together.
So you're you're to the point where with the fighting, with the dueling. Is Adolin like trying to do his crazy duel? Was that the part you're at now?
He just agreed to doing a duel with two opponents.
With two opponents. Okay,
Yeah, but he
yeah.
hasn't
But
done
they
it yet.
have he hasn't dueled yet. Okay, that
Mm.
gets
He
okay.
just
It's
he I think the last chapter I read with him, he was agreeing to it, and then
okay.
he hasn't actually done it yet. So
So
speaking of it being a TV show, so two things I want to point out. One, Brandon Sanderson, there's never any curse words. There's like
no,
basically no sex scenes. Like they're very
no.
clean, kid friendly books. But they
Yeah,
don't
definitely.
feel but they
But they
don't
don't
feel
feel
like
like
it. Yeah, it
no,
doesn't feel like you're reading a young adult novel.
no, definitely
Um
not. So
um
going along those lines, I every time we talked about this, I've always
yeah.
meant to ask, but what's the deal with the safe hand?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm not. I'm racking my brain trying to think of like what the
I
significance of covering your hand is,
it
and
could just
like,
be weird. It could just be like, oh, what's something that is odd that this culture might have? Oh, they cover one of their hands.
even they make fun of it in the book. Like the people that don't do it, they're like, but you have another one that
Yeah.
looks just like it,
Yeah,
and they
yeah,
can't explain it, and you're just like,
yeah. I think that could be all it is, or it could actually be something that we find out later on that it's like whenever I don't know, like I think of like Rogue, how she would wear that glove because she could like absorb someone's power. Like, what if women in this culture like have some ability, like if they
some
touch,
ability with their
yeah,
left hand,
and they
got
just
a
we never
little
find out
eye in
about
their
it.
hand.
Yeah, we don't find out about it until it's important later on or something. But no, I think it's
There's,
just this weird quirk that this culture has.
I keep thinking of like Puritan
Yeah.
women that
Well,
covering their
covering their
ankles
hair,
and stuff, like
covering
covering
your
their
hair.
hair.
Yeah.
It's just, I guess, hand is just weird because like,
Yeah, but
ugh.
hair's weird too. The only reason why hair
Hair's very
only
weird as
reason why
well.
hair's not weird is because we're used to it. It could have been
Right.
it could have just as easily been the hand. Like there's no reason that it was ever the hair.
Some dude a long time ago in their culture got really turned on by
Yeah.
some chick's hand and
Yeah.
was like, nope, can't have hand.
I think
Left one, right one's good. Left, nah, not so much.
yeah, it wouldn't be as weird if they covered up both hands. Then it would be
Right.
like, oh, they're just in the hands. Some people are in the feet. A lefty's in the hands. Um,
But there's the part where Shalon goes out as what's her alter ego,
Veil.
Vale. Well, the first
Yeah,
time she goes out with Vale, because Vale
that's the
doesn't
part.
wear,
Yeah,
yeah, and she's like freaking out because she
she
can't
wears
wear a
a
glove.
glove instead of, and then whenever she switches to a Bright Eyes woman again, she puts her hands in her
She has to put the
pockets.
glove, yeah, right, and you're
Yeah,
like, but just the inner dilemma of, oh my
yeah.
god, I got to go out without a glove on my hand.
Good thing that her like image doesn't blush or whatever. So that's the part. That is the part. So the other day, we drove to Greenville to get something to eat, and we wanted my kid to go to sleep on the way back. And I knew I can listen to Words of Radiance because I know that Sanderson's not going to pop in like some like
Right.
crazy scene that I don't want anybody in the car to hear. And so I put it on, and Becca was listening to it with me, and we were at that part. We were at the part where she tries for the first time to change her face by drawing,
Right.
and Becca was like really into it. Like she was like asking me questions and stuff, and I was like, you got about 1,600 pages worth of expedition here that I can't
Right.
I can't give you while we're riding on the road listening to it. You're just gonna have to start reading the books or hope that one day they come out
Exactly.
with this as a TV show. Um,
that's that's Cooper. I was listening to it in the car, and he was like, "Oh, who's this guy? What does he do?" And I'm like, "Yeah, oh,
yeah.
you had a lot of catch up for that one."
The
Like,
first book is 1,000 pages, and then so I bought Oathbringer.
oh, did you?
I got it.
Oh,
So I
that's a
thought
big one too.
yeah. Oh yeah. I think it's the biggest so far. They get a little bit bigger each time by like,
Yeah,
you know, Probably less than 100 pages. They're all around 1,000. Let's see how big this one is.
Yeah. Is that Shalon on the cover, I'm assuming?
This is 1242. So it's a dark-haired lady.
Could
So
be Vale.
originally I was thinking it was Yasna,
Or
but I don't know how I don't know how Words of Radiance ends, so this could be Vale. Um I'm really not sure. And then it's hard to tell by the way this shard blade looks, like which shard blade it might be, but it could be the one that
I
Shalon
feel
uses.
like that's Shalon, just as Vale.
Yeah, because that's what I was asking you. And again, I think this was at D&D and not on the show, but like we were talking about whether Yasna was really dead or not, because they made it a point to say that. So there's a part. Maybe we did talk about this on the show. I don't remember, but Shalon, when she goes back into Yasna's room, she says that she's feeling to see if she'll trip over her body, but then she doesn't. Just
Right.
to me, that sentence just has no point, and unless they're trying to indicate something there, they're planting some seed there.
Right.
Could just be expressing how nervous Shalon was,
He was.
and it
Could
could have
be.
just been that. But I also just don't feel like Sanderson does a lot of that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I think there's got to be something to it. And then whenever I saw the cover of Oathbringer, which is the best cover by the way, it's definitely the best
Yeah.
covered book. I like the look of this book way better than the other one. I think the first one, The Way of Kings, and then Oathbringer are the best covers. The cover of Words of Radiance is kind of a little corny, but anyway, um, when I saw the cover of this, I was like, is that a spoiler? Like, is Yasna back? Is that a spoiler? But then I got to all the Veil stuff, and so it could just be Veil on the cover.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I still imagine Yasna as like um
Older than this,
old.
probably.
I, I
Yeah.
I think of her as blonde-headed Charlize Theron.
I thought she had dark hair. I thought they said she had dark
Does
hair
she
in the
have dark
book.
hair?
I thought so. I
Maybe so.
I thought so
No, I think you are right.
because another reason I think that is because I think that basically, and this is something interesting we should talk about. I think that basically not Yasna, Shalon, her Veil character is her trying
Is
to,
Yasna
yeah, it's her trying to take what she's learned from Yasna, but also
right?
incorporate aspects of herself, and like this is like her new identity that she's kind of making. And
Right.
the first part of this book, she was basically mimicking Yasna. Like
Right.
she needed the strength to get through that moment in the snowy plains or whatever,
Right.
and she felt like she couldn't do it, and so she basically just pretended that she was
She
somebody who
emulated
could.
her.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And I think that Veil is like a still kind of a part of that,
Right.
um, because you know what it is. She did the same thing with Tien.
Yes.
She learned from her, and she's kind of started incorporating that into her character too. And so maybe
Right.
Vale is kind of a mix of those
Belle is
two.
a 10 and Yasna mix.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely.
Yeah. That's really cool.
And you'll see that come out more too, like her assertiveness and like um where she won't back down. I'm trying to remember what the guy's name that's the head of the
Yeah, they say it.
yeah,
Mushu, something like that.
something like that. But yeah, you like when her with him, like she definitely carries that air of like confidence and like that she's just as big a person in the room as he is type thing.
Yeah.
And that's definitely Yasna because she was definitely the
More
head of the
timid.
room wherever she went. Yeah.
And then Yasna, yeah.
Um.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, like, so
I just got to get through it, man. There's
you
probably so
know, and
much you want to talk about that we can't because I just got to get caught up.
it's like I said, you'll get through four. So I was looking at this thing that it's a chapter by chapter breakdown. So you get through four, and then the interludes between four and five is where you get to the Taravangian
Mm.
interlude. And I'm telling you, like part four is really good. Like,
Hmm.
and then once you the Taravangian interlude just throws this whole new wrench into everything,
Yeah.
and then like five from that interlude on, it just basically like explains everything, and like
Hmm.
it tells you like you find out exactly why everything is happening the way it's happening. Like I said, you find out what shard blades are, you find out like what the Knight's Radiance were, and the what are the other things,
The
the
the Knights Radiance, the Void Bringers,
the who are
Shard Plate,
the the 10
the Ghost Bloods, the
no the god people,
um
um the heralds.
the Heralds.
You'll
Yeah.
find out all about what the heralds are,
Hmm.
and like all that stuff. Like
That's crazy that it all
it's
comes
crazy.
together that way.
It just like I said, you hit that interlude, and it's like whoa, and then it's like boom, there you go. Here's
That's
everything,
crazy.
and then it ends, and you're just like, okay, that was pretty cool. Um, and then like yeah, now where do you go from here? So um,
You go to Oathbringer,
you go to Oathbringer.
but you're not allowed to
So
do it
that's
until I get done.
I would say I so one of the things I have been doing, I think we've talked about this before, but like especially when I got into audiobooks, is I would go through and I basically did all of Stephen King's audiobooks, and some of them I did more than once, and then I started doing like suggestions, that's recommended by Stephen King type thing. This one guy, Dan Simmons, I found.
Yeah, I've
Um,
heard Dan Simmons.
he's done some pretty cool books. Like I've read several. He does a really cool take on vampires, but it's more of like a psychic type vampire. And but I was looking for a book one time, and one of his books was recommended called Summer of Night, which is like I think it came out about the same time as It did with Stephen King. It was like an It type story with like the kids in a town have to fight like this, you know, evil, foreign, like ancient evil type thing, and just really cool um, kids adventure story, but with
Yeah.
death and mayhem and all kind of stuff. And I really got into it. It was really good, and it brought in things like the Borgia family, the Italians that
Oh
became
yeah.
like the Pope, and they're whatever. So it all had to do with all this stuff. But there was this character, like I said, it um, had to do with these like maybe 7 or 8 kids. I can't remember exactly, but like in any kind of show or book or anything like that where you have like that kind of an ensemble type thing,
Mm-hmm.
there's usually one or two characters that are like the standout characters of them, even though you're trying to be like everyone's kind of the same.
Right.
Um, and like there was this one kid um, in the book who was like he was one of the focal points. And he was like, so in the book they're about 11 or 12, and he is like super super smart. Like he's all into reading and like really reading, and like he knows old English, like can read Beowulf in the original kind of
Mm.
thing,
Oh
like
wow.
just
Yeah.
super super smart kid. And he's one of the kids that's figuring out like what's happening, and doing the research and stuff. And you're like, he's a really cool kid, like he's bullied, and he's getting above that, and then he spoiler, he kills the kid off right in the middle of the book.
Hmm.
And I'm like, that's one of those things where you're like, most authors don't do that, and it
Like,
just blew me
yeah.
away. I'm like, this is his, like, the guy that he's setting up to essentially be. You think he comes to the end of the book, it's going to be him, battling out, and they, kills him. But anyway, so finish the book. It's a good book, and that was probably a year or so ago. And then after I finished Words of Radiance, I was trying to find something else, and I was looking. I was like, oh, look at some more Dan Simmons things, and one caught my eye. I started listening to it, and it was basically a sequel to that other book, except it took place like 30, 40 years later, where the other main kid,
Hmm.
who does make it through, he becomes a writer, and he comes back to the farmhouse that the other kid had lived in and where he had died, and to stay for a few months and to try and write a novel. And of course, it's haunted and it's all about, but well, not weird, but a really cool take that he did is the very first chapter of the book is from the perspective of the kid from the first book, but as a ghost, as a dead person who knows he's dead, but he doesn't remember exactly why or how he died. And you find out that he's been essentially, it's not like a normal haunting. He's not like haunting like the house where he was, or he is in Dale, who's the other kid. He's in his mind. So
Hmm.
he knows, like, he's lived and experienced Dale's life.
Huh.
And it's really cool. And then, like, there's a really cool cliffhanger thing at
Is
the
it?
end of the book and all that stuff. And
Does that turn out to be a through line through the whole book, or is that
yeah,
only in the
like,
first chapter?
no, no, he talks throughout, like,
Wow, that's
like
cool.
you'll, it's kind of like one of those, did you watch Moon Knight on
No, not
Disney
yet.
or anything?
No,
But
no.
Moon Knight, where he's got, several personalities and he
Right.
doesn't know what's happening. You kind of get that feeling, even though he doesn't 100% come out and say it, but you feel like the other kid
Oh,
comes out in
sometimes.
him sometimes,
Huh.
and like but it's really cool. It was a really neat story. It went by a lot faster than I was hoping for, because now I got to find something else to read. Um, but yeah, like I don't know. I was thinking, I don't know if I want to go back and listen to another Stephen King book, or um,
I need to. So, I gotta focus on finishing Words of Radiance, and then I should probably immediately start on Oathbringer just because I'm slower than you are. Um, but I'm reading this other book, and I'm over halfway through the book, and I'm like hardly interested in it. Like, it's not a bad book,
right,
it's just not my type of book. Um,
right,
it's the Glass Hotel story that I'm reading. It's I feel like it is like listening to gossip. Like, basically the whole book is just talking about these various people that are all involved with this hotel, and then what their lives are like after they quit working at or quit staying at the hotel. And but none of it all connects together. There's some connections, but there's no big plot connection. You know what I mean? Like, there's not like a mystery. They're not trying to figure out who like murdered somebody or something like that. It's just
right.
like you just learn about these people. But I'm over halfway through it, so I feel like I should stay committed and finish it. But at the same time, I've got to start reading. I've got to start reading the Drawing of the
Huge book,
Three.
right?
Yeah, I got to. So, like, I think maybe I should give up on it and just start the Drawing of the Three.
Oh, does it sound like? Did you ever see the? Oh God, I think it was Guy Ritchie movie, Seven Rooms. I think it is.
I know that there's like, what is it, 5 rooms? There's a
Is it
Quentin
five?
Tarantino movie called something called 5 Rooms or something like that.
It's got Tim Roth in it, and he's a bellhop
I don't
at a
know. I've never
hotel.
seen the Quentin Tarantino movie.
Okay, but this movie is Tim Roth is a bellhop at a hotel, and essentially it's different hotel rooms, and he goes, he gets called to these different rooms, so there's different stories
Yeah.
happening in the different hotel rooms, and they're not. connect. Well, I think one or two of them may be eventually connected, but like essentially, it's just they have nothing to do with each other. It's just, hey, we need
Yeah.
champagne to this room. And he goes up there, and it's like a quick story about what these people are happening in their lives. And he goes to another room, and it's the same thing. Just whatever room he goes to. It's a very interesting movie. I think Madonna was in that movie too. I feel like.
Trying to find it on IMDb.
Um,
I think we might be talking about two different things. But the yeah, it's kind of like that. I mean, it's not a bad book. So it was for this writer. I wanted to read something by this writer because I liked the TV show Station 11 so much, which I did love. But it's just like we were talking about earlier that I love the adaptation of the book, but I wouldn't necessarily like the original book. You know what I mean?
right,
Um, so I wanted to read something else by this writer, and I might have just picked a really bad one because it's poorly reviewed. I mean, it's no one says, "Oh, it's an awful book," but people are like, "Oh, this is nothing like Station 11," you know?
right,
And that's kind of the way I feel about it. Is like it's not a bad book. It's just not a great book either. Like I just feel like I'm reading like a beach novel. Like this I could see my mom enjoying this book. That's that kind of thing.
right,
Um there's not really any mystery to it. I mean, maybe the mystery is supposed to be. So like there's this vandalism that happens at the beginning of the book at the hotel, and maybe the mystery is supposed to be that I'm trying to figure out who vandalized but I don't really care. Like who cares? You know,
right,
I've vandalized plenty of buildings. Like I don't care about that. The book is really just like following all these different people's lives, and there's like a brother and sister, and they kind of separate for many years, then they come back together, and then I mean, I don't know. I got like 250 more pages of this thing, and I don't even know
right.
if it's worth finishing. Um,
I'm always one of those people that like I find it hard to not finish a book,
yeah,
but there have been times when I'm just like, I this just does not do it for me. And you know, again, it hasn't been that many, but I'm also of the feeling that there are so many books to read that
yeah. You only got
if
so much
if it
time.
you only have so much time.
Yeah,
Oh, it's four rooms was
Four Rooms.
the
That's the one I was trying to think of. Yeah,
was that a Tarantino?
is that not Quentin Tarantino? Four
That's what
Rooms.
I'm looking at.
Um,
Writers,
no, that can't be.
directors, Robert Rodriguez. There's a couple different people that did it.
Ah, well, what am I thinking of then? Um,
But, but yeah, like I mean, there's a and it's weird because this book it didn't even. It's not that I didn't even like it, because I liked Dan Sim, not Dan, the guy that wrote Da Vinci Code, Dan Brown.
mm-hmm.
Like I read the Da Vinci Code. It was good. I read Angels and Demons. It was good.
Yeah,
Tried to read The Lost Symbol. It was good, but I got about halfway through it and I just could
yeah.
not finish it. And again, it wasn't that it was like, oh, this is terrible. It just
I think what I'm gonna
it
do.
didn't interest me.
I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to take like an afternoon where I try to not skim it, but I try to like fast read it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I start reading like the first couple sentences of every paragraph, and then once I kind of figure out that I know what's going on, just move. And that way I can kind of like be
Right.
like, I got through the book, I know what happened, but I didn't have to commit the time to actually finishing it in detail. Um, I don't know. I hate to give up on a book. I feel like I should finish it especially if I'm this
Right.
far. It's not like I read the first couple of chapters and gave up on it. Like I've read half the book. I've read over half the book, and then I'm just kind of like, there's just other things I want to read right now. I don't.
Right.
I want to be done with this one so I can read something else.
So we're talking about some things that I should recommend. Like I like to recommend. So like we were talking about historical type fiction.
Yeah.
So there's this book, and I mean I wouldn't really consider it historical fiction. It's called The Historian, though.
Oh, okay.
Um, and it's this girl, Elizabeth. See if I can find her again. It's
Elizabeth Kostova.
Kostava, yes. So it's a really good book. It's a bigger book, but I don't know if you're reading the summary for it, but it essentially takes the historical Dracula
Mm.
and like puts it into like a thriller story. Like, so it takes like who like Dracula was as the real person, like Vlad Tepes, and then like becomes Dracula, and then essentially the gist of it is he searches or whatever and takes these people as prisoners to be the historian of his life,
Hmm.
and he keeps them in a library in like a museum type thing that he has, and they basically he doesn't turn them into vampires though, so he has to like he'll take somebody and I guess they live out their life, and then he goes and gets another one. And
That's so wild.
the story is this this guy his he's a historian. His mentor disappears, and he winds up hooking up with the guy's daughter, and they essentially figure out that's what happened. The guy is like Dracula's historian, and so
Wow.
they're trying to track Dracula and rescue her father. And it's a really good book. It's a really good take on like Dracula, and but it weaves in like actual like history of like um, Constantinople and all these ancient cities and different things like that, like real things that happened, and it's a really interesting book.
It's like a alternate history book.
Yeah, I
That's
read
pretty
it
cool.
once years ago, and then I read it again maybe a few months ago. And it's definitely worth the check out if you ever look, want to find something. Uh, Once you get all these giant books out of the way, and you want another
Yeah.
giant book to read. Um,
By the time I get caught up with all the Stormlight Archive books, it'll be about time for the Kickstarter, the Brandon Sanderson Kickstarter, to start showing up. So we'll have that to talk
exactly.
about.
And then he's got to finish the other three books or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Which what did it say? I think it comes out. The next book is like next year. I think
I
it said 2023.
I think so. Yeah. I
So
know the prologue is out. Or
not
there's
really.
yeah, the prologue I'm pretty sure is released on. He did it around the same time that he did that Kickstarter. Um, it's
And that would be
book 5, right? Yeah.
yeah,
So we're not that far off. I mean, basically, so I got to finish. I got to finish this book too, but then we'll be on book 3, and then we've only got one more book. If we can finish it before 5 comes out, we can read 5 with everyone else, basically,
exactly.
and be caught up. But
I
yeah,
don't think that would be an issue.
so you can get prologue to Stormlight 5, prologue to Live. Gavilar Colin was on the verge of immortality. Yeah, so can't read anymore because it'll be
Yeah,
spoilers.
definitely. Don't spoil it.
That first sentence might have been a spoiler. We don't really know. We don't really know.
Nah.
Um,
You're like honestly, your wildest guess is going to be wrong. So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
just like, especially like the shard blade thing is so it's
Oh
yeah.
man. So when
And
do you
you're
find
gonna
that
be
out?
like,
Is that at the very end or is that at the end of part 4?
no, it's I would say it's probably in part five, but it's probably right at the beginning ish. Um, there's hints of it, but like you'd have to be really like on point to catch the hints. But when once you know, like, um, you'll go back and be like, okay, maybe I should have seen it a little bit, but um, yeah, it's it's really cool.
It's a
And you'll find out a lot. Again, you'll find out like what the sprint are and what they
yeah.
do and why they're there, and like it's like you find out everything essentially. And it is unique how much he wraps up in this thing. That's why
Huh.
I say we're going into the next one. You're like, okay, where are they going from here? But then he
Yeah.
also leaves a lot of questions open. So like a lot of the other interludes with like the girl that goes to the islands that move. Have you read that thing yet?
I read. Yeah. 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 That's yeah. I read that. That's what I was reading when I was on the plane going to New York,
Okay, and
and she like jumps off or
it's like
whatever.
it's like a giant turtle when she jumps.
Yeah. She tries
Okay,
to
yeah,
ride the. She tries to ride the rope down to see the to
yeah,
speak to the turtle. Yeah,
to
that
speak to the
I
turtle.
forgot about that. That was a weird story.
Well, it doesn't come up again, so don't worry. So that's another, but I'm assuming she is
Yeah,
one of the Knights Radiants.
probably.
She just doesn't because she's got whatever power. And I think that's what there. Oh, one of the interesting characters swinging back to this,
Yeah.
the 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 guy that is so there's the interlude with the guy that's making shoes for the poor kids.
Yes, I forgot about that too. Yeah.
Okay, and then the guy comes along and kills him,
Yeah. Yeah,
and then
and he was secretly hiding that he had power too,
that
right?
he has powers.
Yeah.
So that guy, and he comes up again. I don't know if he's come up again yet, but like he is. I don't know who he's working for, but he's working for somebody. And so the guy that was making the shoes was supposed to be what I'm guessing is a Knight's Radiance.
I'm
He had
guessing
the powers,
yeah.
and it's starting to come out. It's kind of like go back to Star Wars. It's kind of like the
Yeah.
Force. Like the Force is starting to come again, and so
That's what I
people
was
are
going to
starting.
say, right? Yeah. That's what it
And
reminds me
so
of. Yeah.
right, and so like now people are starting to. These powers are starting to come out of people, and like this guy's like an inquisitor in Star Wars. He's going around finding these force sensitive people and taking them out.
Yeah.
And that's I'm interested to know who that dude is and like because there's you talk about you've got the Storm Father and you've got the All God or whatever there's all these but you don't really get I mean the Storm Father is sort of I don't think he's malevolent but he's not good but like you don't really get like this evil malevolence type thing like I feel like this guy is like an emissary of some
Right.
God that we don't know about yet or something. It's definitely got to be something. That's why, like, he sets this up in this one little interlude and then drops it, and then book
Yeah.
five or like book six, it's gonna come up again. You're gonna be like, damn, I remember that now. Like, you set that
Yeah.
up a long time ago. So
I think man,
I can imagine his like office. But he's probably got crap strings,
yeah.
flow charts, like just
This is a whole different podcast, but I was thinking like you and I should try to write a book. Would you be interested in that?
oh yeah, definitely.
We'd have
I've
to
always
do
wanted to write a book.
we because see, I don't think I could do it myself. I don't think I would force myself to be
Right,
motivated. But
right.
and I don't know that I can.
I used to write. I wouldn't say I write books. I used to try to write short
Yeah.
stories. I haven't done that in 20 years
So
probably.
I think I think in the fashion of like our D&D campaign, like I think that I could come up with a story if you could then help me write it. You know what I
Right,
mean?
yeah.
I don't know. This is like a whole another. We could talk about this for another hour. So,
Right.
we need to figure that out someday.
Definitely. I've always wanted to try and write a TV show.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the way I think about our D&D campaign. I don't know if that's the
Right.
way. I think most dungeon masters probably don't think about it that way. They probably think about it more like they're telling a story, like what's in a book. But I think about,
Right.
okay, if this were an episode, if I had to fill
Right.
about
Exactly.
45 minutes of content and I want it to end in such a way that they're excited to pick up the next episode, like how would I do that?
Right.
Or if this, like I read the campaign we're in, I read the entire thing and I thought, okay, if this were a season of a show, how would they have the A plot and the B plot? Sometimes, dropping hints of the
Right.
B plot while you're on the A plot and vice versa. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's just from watching like a ton of television. Like I've just watched way too much
Exactly.
television.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thanks for doing this with me, man.
Yeah.
We need to not wait so long for the next one, so we'll try to do it next week, maybe.
You know, all the craziness that happens during summers with kids being out of
Yeah.
school and yeah.